Hello, welcome to the first devlog. So this time we are working on Godot on the selection level menu. And on top of selecting the level in this scene, we're also trying to select the difficulty. Depending on the level you choose, there will be different difficulty selection available. So I will show you the breakdown of the scene structure and then the code associated with it. And I will, of course, do a little demo. Here we go. So let's try to run the project first. So I have this, I have 3 level available. If I hit enter, then I can select the difficulty I want. If I press escape, go back to the previous step and escape again, I'm back to the choose your character page. So if I change the character, you can notice here that the character changed. So let's bring another one, for example, here. If I click on that, nothing happened because it's locked. And yeah, that's it. So let's break down the scene structure. So the main parent here is a regular control node. I attach 2 export variables that represent the skull for the difficulty in the normal state and in the over state that will be also used for focus. Then we have a simple texture rectangle here that represent the background image. Then we have this margin container that contain the back button with a style flat because I don't want it to be too visible on that page, and it's more like accessible when you use the keyboard or controller, but you can click on it, but it's not advertised in a way. Here I have the 3 badge that I put to hidden. Then we have the little title here, so nothing really to comment on that. Then I have a simple each box with 3 texture rectangle that represent the level background. And within each of them, we have a regular button with the full rectangle as an anchor, so it takes the full space. And also another texture rectangle that represents the lock that will be hidden within the code, depending on if that level has been unlocked yet or not. Another thing to mention is I'm playing a lot with the self-modulate like this in order to change the color of that particular element without modifying the child. And also, if we look at that button, you can see here that I overwritten the focus style to have some kind of glowy overlay. We then have the difficulty selector, which is this texture rectangle that contain like some kind of margin container, a little title here, and then a series of texture rect with associated button within a HBox container. So here we can see a simple texture, nothing fancy, except here again, I'm doing the same trick with the self-modulate. I put them as black by default. That will be the state where they are locked, so not available to pick up. And then if you can see on the button here, I set the focus neighbor for all the different neighbors. So the idea is if you're on the left side, you can't go to anything else. So you need to be locked here because that will be easier to select the difficulty from the controller. Another useful trick I wanted to mention is, for example, here, if you don't want when the people press left arrow to go outside, what you can do is to reference the neighbor for the left to itself. So here, as you can see, it's the easy button and it's reference itself. And then I have on the bottom here a little animation player that will run 3 animation, like really simple, nothing perfect there. Like this for the first one, like that for the second one, and like that for the third one, and a quick reset. Yeah, so the idea will be when you click, it falls down on the right, using the right animation. So let's have a look at the code alongside. So let me go back to the beginning. It will be a little bit easier. So first step is those two export variables that I showed you beforehand. So the difficulty scale over and the difficulty scale here and there. Then I have a bunch of already representing the different button and the different element I need to access through the code. So the reference like that. Accessing node as a unique name is really useful when you are not using the default Godot editor because you can't do the drag and drop trick. But also if you're not sure about the structure of your scene at the moment because you're still in the construction and you move everything around, then it avoids the need to change the path because if you just use the drag and drop thing, you will have a path and you have to maintain that path as well. And when you use unique name, you don't have to do that. The only thing you need to take care of is to make sure the name is actually unique. Otherwise, the editor will yell at you anyway. Then here you can see some kind of color that I defined for the different states. So the difficulty and selected color will be a kind of gold color for the skulls. And this represents the black one. Same again here for the unselected level color. So this represents this self-modulate color. Then I have a bunch of dictionaries that I use here in order to avoid the L of writing if, elif, and so on and so forth for many use cases because I have 3 scenario here. Then I have 5 scenario and I don't want to have a spaghetti of if everywhere. Here I'm recording another segment because I realized that I was mentioning the trick with dictionary and the example I gave may not be ideal, so I will code along a really quick example so it will be easier to follow. So one of example we can have is let's say in a game, whenever you kill an enemy, it can give you a specific kind of item that reward you with different type of coin. So maybe we have a function like func give reward and that take an item. It will be a string and it will return an integer. And then you will have something like if item equal coin. I want to have 10. And if item equal something like, I don't know, gem, it will be something like 25. And if item equal gold, it will give you something like 50. And then basically how you will kind of redo that in a proper way using a dictionary will be to have something like the following. So instead of having like this, you will have the function that will do something like define a dictionary. So we call that reward map. And so it's a dictionary and it takes a string and it returns an integer. And we do something like coin and it will give you 10. Then we will have the gem that will give you 25. Then we will have the gold, which will give you 50. And then, small indenting. And then how you will do it, that you will just do something like return just one line, no statement, everything is flat, and you could do something like return rewind map and get, and you provide here the item. And yeah, the other advantage is instead of having something flat to read out and easier to read is the easiness to maintain it, because you can imagine also that this dictionary is constructed dynamically, and so you could grab that from a resource, and then you just have to maintain that dictionary or that resource, and you don't have to like review that code, and it will avoid a lot of mistake and provide you a good readability. Okay, let's go to the ready function. So nothing fancy here. I'm creating an array with all the different buttons for the skulls here, the difficulty. Then I associate with each of them an integer number from 1 to 5. Same kind of concept for the chosen character, but instead it will return a string representing the character that you select on the previous step. So alchemist, mushroom, or big. This is a placeholder name, by the way. That's not the final name for within the game. And then another kind of dictionary shortcut. So this one, 1, 2, 3, leading to a button. So that allows us to reuse later on some behavior when you press on a level to know which level you press on. So if you pressed on this one, it should be 1 for the button 1. If you press 2, it will be 2 for the button 3, 2, and 3 for the button 3. Then we use this kind of trick to show here after that to hide or show the badge corresponding to the character selected. So if we go back here, chosen character, that's the character we are getting back. We use that dictionary, so we pass the key. So it will be alchemist, mushroom, or big, and depending on that, it will return the actual note we want to show. Then, of course, when we start the scene, we want the user to have a focus on a particular element. In this case, that will be that first one here. And then we want to set the self-modulate for the different element here. So this is like what will show or what will change the color and show or hide the locks depending on the available maps that you already unlocked based on that thing here. Then it's a really simple connection for the pressed event. So yeah, as I said, I want to pass 1, 2, and 3 to know which button was pressed, because I want to reuse the same function and not write 3 times the same code. And of course, we also need to support the back button, because we need the player to be able to change the character if you wish to. And this bit is for the skulls for the difficulty. So at the end, the player will either click on the button he wants, or he will navigate with the arrow keys or the gamepad and pressed with the UI accept mapped key. And that will trigger the press. Okay, then we have a little input function that will allow us to handle the case where people pressing escape or back on the controller. So it's a two-step process. So if you run again the program here, you can see that if I hit escape, I'm going back to that state. So I'm within this if statement. But now that I'm not inside it anymore, if I just press HAP again, it will just switch back to the previous scene using this. So this we already covered. It was for changing the color here. Then we have some kind of a similar approach, but this is for the difficulty button. So whenever they show down here, we need to make sure, for example, if you put your mouse here, that everything is colored as it should. So unselected, like this one here will be in gold. The one that are locked should be here like that on black, and the one you select in white with those eyes. Yeah. So then we have, let me close that first. So then we have the utility function that I reuse in many places to know whenever you selected a level, what are the available buttons for that level. So for example, if I click on this one, I have 2 available difficulty that I can choose from. But for this particular level, I will only have only one. Then there is that mouse entered that will be used within the difficulty. So this is a little bit a challenging one because I reuse that mouse entered for both the mouse, but also when you grab focus. So that's why I'm passing an extra argument here to know if I'm from the mouse usage or if I'm coming from the keyboard with the focus. And one of the first thing I need to do here is to exit this if I'm in fact coming from the mouse and the button already has the focus, because otherwise I don't want to do anything because everything is already in the state it should be. Okay, then here what I'm trying to do is to, for each of those available button for the difficulty, I want to either show the regular texture or the texture with the focus. Because the ID is the actual one that you have the mouse on or the focus on should have this, and all the other one should be regular, but with the caveat that they need to have the right color. So that's what I'm doing with this one here. So then we have a mouse exit function, which do again the same thing, grabbing all the available difficulty buttons for that particular level selected. Then we check that when we exit the mouse, we put back the texture here as like this, because we don't want it to be still with the eye, because it should not have the focus anymore. Then we have the level press logic. So whenever you press on the map, what happened? So first thing first, if you didn't unlock that map, so that means the level you are trying to click on, so here 3. If you only have unlocked 2 level, then you will have 3 superior to 2. So that will just exit and do nothing. Then here, what problem that can happen is a lot of time I have all those buttons that I need to reuse because I use the same animation over and over again. And I need to set up the event for the mouse enter, mouse exit, and focus. The problem is I need to disconnect all those events and reconnect them with the right parameter each time. So in order to do that, in Godot, you need to make sure the event is connected before disconnect, otherwise you will get an error. Yeah, as you can see also in a lot of places I'm calling the button and get parent. That's because I didn't want to have for each time I want to use a button, I have to reference that as well, and having to juggle a logic where I need to keep track on the parent texture and with each child. So what I do is I use the button, then grab the parent, so that will return that texture, for example, and then I change the self-modulate here to the color I want. So here it's more like a default, putting everything back to no focus mode, so you can't move around it or grab the focus, and disabling all the buttons because I don't want them to be pressed by mistake. Or for example, if you only have 2 available difficulty, I don't want anything to happen if you click on that. Then I'm just double checking that you're not clicking on the same level again, because when you're on the mouse, you can click on a level, for example, like this, and click again. So if it's the case, I just want to grab back the focus to the first available difficulty option that you have. Then the next logical step after I've done that is to make sure I set the initial state for all the difficulty properly before triggering the player animation. So I will look through all the available difficulty button for that specific map, and I will reactivate all the buttons, so removing the disabled and re-allowing all the focus that I set through the editor for each of them. As you can see here, if you remember. So here we go. Wait, where is it? Here. Let me close that for the next part. So next, something really simple. So when you're focused on the difficulty selection, we want to make sure all the parent maps are grayed out, so and selected. And then finally, we want to display the animation that will drop down depending on the map you click, with only if you're not clicking on the same animation again. So for example, when I click here, I want to have that here, but if I'm already here, I don't want to redo the cycle of the animation in this case, because I don't need to, it's already there. So that translates just by this if statement here. So we know is the same animation that I set to false here, and if the level is equal to the selected level is defined here as the current level, so yeah. So then all the use case should work. Then we have this bit here, and here I just make sure that the actual level I'm here, different level that is still white, where all the other one I grayed out. So this is here I just grayed all of them because I don't want to. I think at the moment it's just return all the different variation. Two will give you unlock one. Unlocked if it's one, just this one. If it's white, it's all of them. I put all them to gray, and then within the code later on, I put the one I want in white. And then I'm putting that flag to true because I'm in the difficulty selection, and I make sure I grab the focus on the first element here. And then we have the final piece here, which is what happens whenever you click on a skull. So for example, if I click on this one, you can see it's sent that I selected the first map and the first difficulty. If I click on here, it should be 1, 2. If I click on that and here, it should be 2, 1. Yeah, so then I pass that to the next scene. And this will allow me then to allow the player to select the deck accordingly to the map and difficulty they choose from. So in the next step, they will be able to have a representation of the map and the difficulty somewhere around here. So if they can go back, then they can do everything step by step again. So as the why I did this kind of approach is because I didn't find any kind of more reliable way to make something like that in Godot in one step. So what I mean by that is you have different kind of nodes. You have like the edge slider, which has this kind of difficulty selection that could work, but in my test it worked really poorly with both controller, keyboard, and mouse. So yeah, I did that trick with multiple button. It's a little bit more of work, but at the end, I think it's a really cool trick. I'm not sure it's the best approach, and feel free if you know something really better to mention it in the comments. I will read it for sure and make sure I update my code later on. And I think that's it. That close that first technical devlog. Let me know in the comment if you find it a little bit more too in detail or not, or if you would want to see something more like chill and coding along kind of video. I'll read the feedback and trying to adjust for the next time. Okay, bye.